Hello, happy Taco Tuesday. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jabbar here with Mark Zinno. Zinno, we had our first Monday Night Football doubleheader of the season. How are you feeling on a Taco Tuesday morning?
I'm feeling like I got to stop taking teasers on Monday nights because it's starting to kick me in the butt after 2 weeks. I'm just done. Between the Broncos and the Vikings, forget it. I quit. It's time to take Monday night off and just sit on my keister and keep the money in my damn pocket. So other than that, LJ, great to see you. It's been forever.
It's been a few days. It's been since Saturday. I was in Boston then. Now I'm back in Atlanta. Just moved to a new apartment. This is not it because I have no internet at my apartment until tomorrow. So I am at a friend's house and I brought my beautiful artwork with me because I can't go anywhere without my avalanche sign to set up my own little background here at my friend's. But pretty soon, Zinno, I will have my own setup at my brand new apartment. It's just taking a little longer than I initially thought.
It makes sense. The Avalanche get to carry the cup everywhere. You get to carry your Avalanche sign everywhere. So, there you go.
And then my Michigan, I can't forget about the big house, my Michigan football photo that I have that I bought from Etsy and I framed it myself.
I know we're not doing college football today, but I will tell you this much. That game is on the list of my 5 games that I will handicap at Pickswise.com. Might end up being my best bet of the week. Michigan laying the 20 against Maryland. It's gonna be a bloodbath for the Terps. They're gonna be some crushed turtle shells when it's all said and done.
It was a bloodbath last week for UConn. I'm actually covering them this weekend at NC State, so I'm excited to cover that game in Raleigh. Never been to NC State's campus, so I'm excited to see that. And yeah, Michigan is really good. That's all I got to say about that. But you want to know who else is really good? Is the Buffalo Bills. We're going to get into Monday Night Football reactions. We're going to stock up, stock down on certain NFL teams that we've seen after week 2. I know after week 1, I definitely overreacted to the Vikings, thinking that they were like the best team. They were God's gift to earth. Now week 2, I have a little different perspective of them. We're going to get into that in a second. And then we have Frank Schwab coming on from Yahoo Sports to talk NFL week 3 slate. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's bet it. Monday Night Football reactions. Game 1 of the night started with the Titans taking on the Bills. The Bills were really good last year. This year, they are just on an absolute different level. It was close at half, 17-7. Second half, Bills were all gas, no breaks. Josh Allen is unreal, 327 total yards, 4 touchdown passes, 3 to Stephon Diggs. We could see what would possibly be the Super Bowl matchup between the Bills and the Eagles. Both teams played Monday night. But the Titans now have a lot of questions surrounding them at this point, including Malik Willis being pulled in the third quarter. Just your thoughts overall on that game, the Titans and their future for the rest of the season, and the Bills and how dominant they are to start this season.
Well, addressing the Titans first, I mean, at that point in the game, it had gotten out of hand enough that they just needed to try something different. There was no reason for Tannehill to stay in there and continue to get beat up and knocked around. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the ball. I mean, the bigger problem for the Titans right now is Derrick Henry averaged 1.9 yards per rush last night. He had 13 carries for 25 yards. He was completely ineffective. Over the course of his first 2 games here, it hasn't looked good at all. So, this is a guy who's averaging 3.1 yards per carry. He has yet to crack 100 yards. They need to figure out a way to get him going if they're going to have any sort of offense with any level of consistency this year. And simply put, The Bills are the best team in football right now. There's no reason to debate it. There's no reason to argue about it. That is a juggernaut. Somebody will figure out how to slow them down one game, 1 week. I don't know if it'll be the Dolphins next week, but that said, they just do everything right. And it is worth noting that the line for the Miami Buffalo game that opened up at 4.5 after last night's game moved to 5.5. So there was a little bit of a line bump right there telling you everything you need to know about how good Buffalo is.
Yeah, it's going to be really crazy to watch them this season. They're just fun to watch. Like, Josh Allen is just a fun quarterback to watch. Their defense is fun to watch. Stephon Diggs is fun to watch. And they're an easy team to root for, too. Like, I want them to go all the way. I'm in. I'm all in on the Bills. Another team that after week 1, we were like, ooh, are the Eagles as good as we think they are? Then you see them against the Vikings. And week 1, we were like, wow, the Vikings are really good. Then you see them against the Eagles. It's just interesting to see how much we overreact in week 1. And then heading into week 2, how things are kind of leveled out. So now week 3 we're heading into. And we see more of a, I guess, leveled out kind of opinion based on some of these teams. But Jalen Hurts right now is the best player on that Philadelphia Eagles team in both week 1 and week 2. His passing game looked extremely accurate to me. Yesterday, he was 26 of 31 for 333 yards, 2 rushing, and a passing touchdown. And Vegas is noticed too because his MVP odds moved from 14 to 1 to 8 to 1 odds. He's now the 3rd favorite to win the MVP behind Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. This is why you don't overreact to week 1 because the Vikings looked incredible against the Packers and it leveled out in week 2. Kirk Cousins threw 2 interceptions in the red zone in the 3rd quarter. Now he is 2-10 in Monday Night Football primetime games. But I will say Darius Slay did look really good against Justin Jefferson. He held him to 1 reception for 7 yards on 5 targets. And he intercepted 2 of those 5 passes. So Darius Slay looked really good. The Vikings overall did not. The Eagles did. Your overall reactions to the second Monday Night Football game?
Well, look, I still think the Vikings are a very good team. I think they ran into a spot here on the road. But again, I'll go back to a team just like the Tennessee Titans. The Minnesota Vikings need to have some sort of effective ground game, and that was not Dalvin Cook last night. 6 rushes, 17 yards, 2.8 after 20 rushes for 90-plus yards in week 1 when they dominated the Green Bay Packers. Now, you could say game script had something to do with that. Kirk Cousins' interceptions did not help, especially for those of us who had the Vikings in a teaser, who would just love the game to have been a little bit closer. That said, this is a Vikings team that's still going to be very good offensively. They got into a hole fairly quickly when they couldn't stop Philadelphia, and they were never able to recover. To your point, Jalen Hurts was fantastic. He completed passes to 8 different receivers, spread them around, and once again, Philadelphia had a great running game. Miles Sanders had 17 carries for 80 yards. Jalen Hurts rushed 11 times for 57 yards. Boston Scott got involved as well. I mean, this is what makes the Eagles really tough to defend. They look very similar to the 2019 Baltimore Ravens. Was that Lamar Jackson's MVP year or was it 2020? I can't remember.
I think it was 2019.
Yeah, so that's what this offense looks like. You have a dual-threat quarterback that is able to be efficient through the air and create time and force defenses to really figure out how they're going to go about trying to beat you. And I just don't know if the Vikings were ready for it last night. Jalen Hurts was certainly the game MVP, if you will.
Did you see that video, too, that they showed of Jalen Hurts in college squatting 600-plus pounds? And then one of the announcers, I don't remember who it was, said, and to ask the question, why? I just thought that was so funny. But your quarterback is squatting 600 pounds in college. I feel like you're pretty set. Jalen Hurts looked really, really good last night. I'm stocking up on them. Speaking of stocking up and stocking down, let's get into some of the stock ratings after week 2, headed to week 3. Let's start with the AFC. First of all, the Dolphins now plus 400 to win the AFC East. They were down 35-14 with 26 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. And everybody and their mother absolutely decided to go off. They outscored the Ravens 28-3 the rest of the game, got the win. Tua decided to look like Tom Brady and absolutely sling the ball. He completed 36 of 50 passes, 469 yards, 6 touchdowns. I loved Tyreek Hill going off because I have him on my fantasy team. Also, Jalen Waddle. They each had 11 receptions, 170 plus yards, 2 touchdowns each. And then on the defensive side, Miami shut down Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in the fourth quarter. It was pretty incredible to see what they did. Tua could break out this year. I don't know how you feel about this, but working with Mike McDaniel as his head coach, who is an offensive guru for the most part, I feel like we've seen the ceiling that Tua could probably hit. Like, he's not going to throw for 6 touchdowns every week, but this could be really good for a Dolphins team moving forward, who maybe people weren't necessarily as high on heading into the season. They're a good team this year.
I'm going to reserve my judgment for them after probably 2 more games.
Okay.
See how they react against a team like the Bills, that may be the most complete team in the league. Let's see how Tua reacts against a pass rush that is legitimate with Von Miller, and hopefully the Bills get Ed Oliver back, because they didn't have him last night, which I thought, the Titans might be able to take advantage of. But still, nonetheless, this is a team that I think is still figuring out a little bit of who they are. I mean, look, They scored 14 offensive points against the Patriots in week 1 and then score 42 in week 2. You don't see that kind of variance, that kind of jump from teams routinely. I mean, you look at the Bills, they put up 8 in week 1 and then 41 last night. There's a little bit more consistency with a team like Buffalo. Miami's still a little bit erratic right now. I got to figure out what they are. I'm hesitant to back them in anything, in any futures at this point in time, especially when it comes to the division, because they're not better than the Bills. And no matter how good Miami is going to be, guess what? They're not going to be better than the Bills. So from that standpoint, I don't feel like it's worth a bet, because you're asking the Bills to stumble. So barring a major injury for the Bills, what knock on wood, doesn't happen to key players in Buffalo, but that's the only thing that puts them over the top, and I can't back that. So I'm gonna reserve judgment on Miami for a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that they're going to win the AFCs, but at the same time, they're a fun team to watch right now at this point. I'm really enjoying watching the relationship between Tua and Tyreek. Like, they have a good thing going right now. It's going to be interesting to see how that builds. And it's only week 2 as the season goes on. Okay, let's move on to the Jags, because plus 350 right now to win the AFC South. Are the Jags the best team in the AFC South? Are they that good, or are the Colts just that bad? I know the Colts are playing without Pittman Jr., but this is the 3rd shutout the Jags have had since 2017. They absolutely dominated the Colts. Sacked Matt Ryan 5 times. He threw for 3 interceptions for the first time in 15 seasons. Trevor Lawrence went 25 of 30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. He hit 7 receivers. Are the Jags the best team in the AFC South at this point? Are they going to win the division? And would you put your money on them at plus 350 at this point?
It's a fun bet. I don't think they're going to win the division, and they're not the best team in that division. What happened on Sunday is more reflective of the Colts than anything else, and the extreme mess that team is in after 2 games. That's a whole different conversation. But, the Jaguars in week 1 against the Washington Commanders stalled out in the red zone, I think 3 times. They kicked 4 field goals in that game and still ended up losing by 5. So, again, while it was fun to think that they were the best team on the football field on Sunday, they were in that game, but they're certainly not the best team on the football field in any size, way, shape, or form. That division is a mess right now. I still think, believe it or not, the Houston Texans are actually better than the Jaguars. And I believe they have a better quarterback than the Jaguars right now in Davis Mills. Let's wait and see what happens. It's a fun bet to make on the Jaguars right now if you'd love to take a flyer on it. But in reality, everybody's going to be sitting in that division. If you look across the board, everybody's at that 2-to-1, 3-to-1 price, because there's no distance from one team to another. I suppose if you have a bet on the Colts to win the division, now would be the time to double down on it. When the numbers come down, you might even be getting plus money on it, as opposed to the minus 125, 150, whatever it was before the season started. So that really would, to me, would be the way to look at it, and look at sort of how much the Jaguars have a chance to win this thing.
What about the Titans at this point? I mean, they're the bottom of the division right now. The Jags are at the top, 1-1. Texans and Colts are both 0-1-1, and the Titans are 0-2. is this a good time to get the Titans at a good value to maybe win the division? Because at this point, the Colts did not look good at all. And to that, who do you think is the best quarterback in the AFC South at this point? Is it Tua?
Well,
Or
no,
Tua,
it's
what am
not.
I talking about? Is it Trevor Lawrence? Sorry. Oh my gosh.
Trevor Lawrence. I
Thank you.
got you. I got you.
Thank you.
No,
Yeah,
it's definitely not Trevor. It's definitely not Trevor
you
Lawrence.
don't
It's
think?
absolutely
Who is? Matt
no.
Ryan? Tannehill?
I mean, Tannehill and Ryan would be up there, but again, my nod's going to go to Davis Mills, who will play the most consistent throughout the year. Look, Matt Ryan is the best quarterback in the division. He's just it's not working right now. Whatever the Colts are doing is not working through 2 games, and they've got to make some, I would say, fairly dramatic changes. You don't want to overreact because it is a long season. They still have 15 games left to play.
Yeah.
But they have not put together an effective game plan in 2 weeks, and that's problematic for them. For a team that was supposed to have finally the missing piece in Matt Ryan going to Indy to be able to get them a division title and onto the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question to answer. If you're asking me who's played the best through the first 2 weeks, again, I would tell you it's Davis Mills. That said, I still need to see more from Lawrence. Lawrence has looked better and better, and he did look good this past week. But as I said, I think it's more reflective of the Colts than anything else.
Yeah, he threw for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it is a reflection of how bad the Colts are through 2 games this season. Let's quickly shift to the NFC before we bring in Frank Schwab. The Giants now plus 400 to win the NFC East. They're 2-0. Who would have thought they would start the season 2-0? If you would have bet me $500 that they would start the season 2-0, I'd be like, yeah, okay, great, sounds good. Brian Dable has these guys locked in. Not necessarily the prettiest of wins, Zeno, at this point, but they're wins nonetheless, right? And they got the win when Saquon was only averaging 3.4 yards per carry last game. They're one of the best defenses in football through 2 weeks. They've been dominating in the red zone and dominating on third downs. And compared to the Cowboys, who are struggling right now with no Dak, yeah, they were still able to get a win. And the Eagles, who looked good last night against Kirk Cousins is now 2-10 in Monday Night Football games, and the Commanders don't have a chance after getting crushed by the Lions. Are the Giants maybe a good outside pick to win the NFC East at this point with the way that they're playing under Brian Dable?
The short answer is no, because the Eagles are going to be very good.
Yeah.
But you said it best. For 2 weeks in a row now, the lights went on at 2 a.m., and the Giants were going home with somebody, and that somebody was a W. It didn't have to be pretty. They went home with somebody. So no, the Giants didn't care about what it was looking like when the lights went on. They're going home with somebody, and they got 2 W's. But this all speaks to one thing, that when you have a coach, okay, that is creative, that understands situational football, that has creative play design, and knows how to accentuate the talent on the roster, you can play with any team in this league. That's how much coaching matters in the NFL. Go across the board. Look at the Broncos. Look at the Cardinals. Look at the Raiders. These are teams that don't have great coaches, and they're struggling despite the level of talent on their roster. The Giants are making it worse, or making it work, rather, with a not so talented roster and a head coach who might just be one of the better play callers in this league. At least he has been through 2 weeks so far to get this team, I'm a Giants fan. I had no expectations of them ever being 2-0. So, there's no way that I thought this start would have happened for them.
Yeah, nobody did heading into the season. They look like they're locked into Brian Dable, his play calling, his plan, and just him as a head coach. It seems like they really love him at the helm of this team, and they're playing hard for him. So I'm interested to see what the Giants are able to do. One more team before we bring in Frank. The Packers, plus 110 right now to win the NFC North. Do you get this number while it's still at plus money? Because there were a lot more positives this week than last week. Aaron Rodgers, Sammy Watkins looked like they developed a good connection. Aaron Jones was solid, 8.8 yards per rush attempt, 132 yards, 15 carries. I know Packers defense is still struggling at this point to stop the run. Over the last 2 weeks, they've allowed 306 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Are they better than the Vikings, though? They looked like it in week 2, but they played the Bears and the Vikings played the Eagles. So is it the competition? Are the Packers better than the Vikings this season? Because I love my Lions. They're out of it. The Bears, they're out of it. This is a 2-man race at this point.
I mean, look, I have a ticket on the Vikings to win the NFC North, so I can't sit here and tell you I want you to back the Packers to do it. But from the standpoint of the fact that they are even money, plus money right now, is when you jump on it. Go back to what I told you guys all summer long about the Chicago White Sox. given where the preseason value was when they were minus 175 or the Packers were minus 150, 180, whatever it was. The fact that they're on the plus side now is the time to buy into the Packers if you believe in them, because chances are those odds won't stay there that long. And if they do stay around that number or in a plus, 200 range, guess what? That means they're trailing the Vikings in the division. So now is probably the best time to get back in on the Packers or get in on the Packers. You didn't do it preseason.
I know a guy that loves talking the Packers. Let's bring in Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports NFL and betting writer. Frank, how are you? Happy Tuesday. I know you grew up a Packers fan. Are you stocking up on your Packers right now at plus money to win the division right now for the NFC North?
Hey, it's not bad value. I'll give you that. And I think the Vikings, some things were exposed last night that maybe their defense isn't as improved as we thought it might be after week one. Look, week one was a really tough spot for the Packers. They went into that game. They never play well in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell had the element of surprise. The Packers still figuring out their offense. I love the Vikings week one, and I love the Eagles last night. So I think that you can tell yourself a story where the Packers are still the best team in that division. The defense is going to be really good. They have two dynamic running backs, obviously the back-to-back MVP. They probably are the best team in that division. I still think the Vikings are going to make that a good race. I'm not rushing to the window to take the Packers. But yes, there's a lot, as you guys were saying, as Mark was saying, there's a lot more value on them now. If you like them, but the preseason odds you didn't like it, now that you could get them at even money, yeah, that does make some sense because at the end of the day, they probably still are the best team in that division.
Frank, you have covered this league for a really long time. Is there any other head coach after 8 games you think should be fired into the sun more than Nathaniel Hackett?
I'm based out here in Denver, and it is just a constant subject of conversation.
Yeah.
It's just been bad. And I know.
He's an
people want
embarrassment.
It's one thing after another, and not getting play calls in on time, and not having a punt returner back, and having to burn a timeout over that. This is normal organizational stuff. You just need to get right, and you just wonder if the job is too big for Nathaniel Hackett right now. That it's a guy who's trying to do everything, call the plays, manage the game, and usually doesn't work out. There, the guys who could do that, like Sean Payton, can do that. I'm impressed with that because how could you? I'm all in favor of a CEO coach. Just have a guy who's Mike Tomlin, overseeing everything. He's not calling every play. He doesn't have the big Denny's menu in front of him trying to call the game. Have a guy who can manage the game. But then, you kind of hired Nathaniel Hackett because he thought he was an offensive guy and he could call plays. He hasn't even really done that yet. Russell Wilson, it's bad. It's bad so far, but it is only 2 games. I'm not saying people in Denver want him fired right now, and that is crazy.
Oh yeah,
they're not wrong.
They're
not wrong. I'm sorry.
It's bad. It's bad so far, but I have to have a little bit of patience with the guy. 2 games. It's all.
When you don't have a basic understanding of simple things, it is problematic. And look, it's proof that Aaron Rodgers was really the OC in Green Bay. Like, you didn't need Nathaniel Hackett there to do anything. But furthermore, again, he ran the same play twice at the goal line last week, back-to-back plays. He ran the same exact play after the first touchdown was negated on the review. He ran the same thing back again. This is not Pee-wee football. You can't do that in the NFL and expect guys not to be able to make an adjustment. It's stuff like that, to me, that is beyond. And yet he lines up for a 64-yard field goal at sea level, but won't kick a 59-yard field goal at elevation. What the hell are you doing?
That baffled me. That blew me away. I couldn't believe that. The decision-making process has just been so bad, and the plays coming in late. That's what look back at that Seattle game. Everybody's like, oh, they fumbled at the goal line. The reason Javonte Williams fumbled at the goal line is because they were in a fire drill at the end of that play because the play call came in so late. They got the play snapped at about 1 second. Yeah, of course the defensive line is going to get a jump. The defensive tackle got into the offensive guard, backed him into Javonte Williams, who fumbled. It all adds up. And the fact that they can't even get the play calls in on time tells me that he's trying to manage the game, and then I'm going to call a play, and then that's not how that works. You don't have much time in the NFL. It's got to come fast. And he's not processing things very quickly right now.
Yeah, I know, and I know Denver fans are really, really pissed off right now. Obviously, I lived in Denver for 3 years. It is Broncos country. People love that team more than they love their own children at some points. It is crazy. Everyone's freaking out. I was like, just calm down. You have a great quarterback. You have a coach that doesn't necessarily know what's going on, but maybe give him a couple more weeks and we'll see. I know we all love to overreact in week 1. Things level out a little bit more in week 2 and week 3. We see a little bit more consistency. It's going to be interesting to see the Broncos moving forward here for week 3. Speaking of week 3, let's get into some of the games you want to talk about. Number 1, the Chiefs taking on the Colts. The Chiefs coming off of a big Thursday Night Football win against the Chargers, and the Colts are just not very good this season. I was expecting a lot more from them heading into this year. They got shut out this week to Jacksonville. What are your expectations for the Chiefs going up against the Colts? Is it going to be a bloodbath?
No, I actually like the Colts. I haven't given up on them yet. And, Sunday was ugly. There's no question about that. But let's put this into some context. No Michael Pittman, not even Alec Pierce. The guys who Matt Ryan was throwing, I literally hadn't heard of some of these guys. I'm not kidding with you. I've covered the league for 20 years, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And so if you get Michael Pittman back, who's one of the top 15 receivers in the NFL, I think that makes a huge difference. I just think this is an overreaction line. You're going to give me 6.5, maybe even 7 with the Colts at home. I'm going to take that. I think that their defense is going to compete in this game. I think Matt Ryan's going to look better. I'm assuming Pittman comes back. If Pittman's out again, I won't touch the Colts. I need to wait on that injury report. But I haven't given up on the Colts being a good team. They started slow last year, too. It just seems to be a problem with them. It's not ideal. But I think that they can at least keep this close, compete. Again, 6.5, 7 points at home for what I think is going to end up being the division winner there. I think that's too many points. I'll be on them. It's just, again, it's one of these lines where, nobody is going to want to take the Colts. Everybody's off the Colts. The Colts stink and all that. It's a little bit of a bloated line here, and I'll jump on the home underdog here because I do think at the end of the day, the Colts are still going to be a pretty good team. And yeah, if they get blown out here, they lose by 21 or something to the Chiefs, then we can start to panic a little bit because it's probably bad news for the Colts.
Speaking of panicking, a pair of 0-2 teams and the Raiders and Titans are going to face off. I know the Titans are home dogs here, getting 2.5. But here's the interesting thing, Frank, and you know this. Since 1990, when they went to the 12-team format, teams that have started 0-2, only 11% of them make the playoffs. Only 3 of them have ever won a Super Bowl after starting 0-2, and one of them was the Dallas Cowboys, the Emmitt Smith holdout year. So outside of that, this is literally a fight for their season for both of these teams because the 11% drops down to like single digits of 5 or 4% when you start 0-3. So, how do you handicap this one with both of these teams as desperate as it can be?
It's a loser leaves town match, right? One of these teams is just really, really stuck, especially the Raiders because they're in the AFC West, whereas you guys were talking about the AFC South before. Like, who's the best team in the AFC South? I don't even know.
No one knows.
9-8 could easily win that division, where 9-8 is not going to get you anything in the AFC West. So I just think the Raiders are a far superior team, far superior. I don't think anything of the Titans this year. I think the Titans are bad. I think Derrick Henry he's probably slowing down. And I love Derrick Henry. He's one of my favorite players over the last 20 years. But all those carries just seem to be catching up to him. He just had no explosion last night, really didn't in the opener either. And if that's not working for them, where's their offense? Ryan Tannehill looked bad last night. And I get it. The Bills are great. The Bills are fantastic. A lot of teams are going to get blown up by the Bills this year. But I haven't seen anything out of the Titans so far, whereas I still hold out to hope that the Raiders are a good, solid football team. They blew that game on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. But what is this line if, the Cardinals' last play of the game, if they stop Kyler Murray or they sack him or it's incomplete, whatever. If the Raiders get that win, I think we're looking at the Raiders a lot differently than a team. Or if Hunter Renfrow doesn't fumble in overtime, we're looking at the Raiders a lot differently. And this line is over a field goal, I think. And I just think the Raiders are a better team. It's one of those just lazy handicaps where it's like, you know what? Team A is better than Team B. I think the Raiders are far better. I think they're going to get the ball to Devontae Adams a lot more this week, which they screwed up last week. I can't imagine the Raiders going 0-3. Their season's done if they're 0-3. The Titans not necessarily. It's bad. It's bad shape. It's bad shape if you're 0-3. But again, AFC South, 9-8, 8-9 might win that division. So I just think the Raiders are going to be really desperate here, and I simply think they're a better team.
Yeah. Everyone was really pissed at Hunter Renfrow after that. It's like there's not much you try to run, spin with the ball, and then have someone's helmet go right into the ball and see if you can hold on to it. Like that. Like there's really nothing you can do.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh, that was crazy. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Raiders respond.
By the way, Byron Murphy. I don't care what they're. Byron Murphy flipped the ball before he crossed the goal line. He did. Like, I was sitting there watching live.
No, he did.
He just pulled Deshaun Jackson, and they couldn't find the right replay angle because the NFL's too cheap to put cameras on the goal line. I don't get that.
I honestly don't understand it either. It would change the game in a lot of different ways. But we'll see. We'll see if that's something that changes moving forward. Speaking of changes, or I guess going back to normal for the 49ers, no Trey Lance anymore. Jimmy G steps back in there. They're now 1-1 on the season. They're going up against the Denver Broncos, who we just talked about, really need to figure it out, especially with their head coach. What are your expectations for the Niners heading into altitude this weekend?
And I kind of talked about it with the Colts too. I'm all about fading overreaction in the NFL. That's what we do. I'm part of it. I write about the NFL all day, every day, all week during the season. We overreact to every single thing that happened. Every game feels like a Super Bowl. And so what are we talking about with the Broncos? Again, I'm based in Denver. We just talked about this. Oh, fire the coach. They're terrible. Russell's washed up. This line moved. It was last night I saw it. Broncos -2.5. This morning I woke up and it was Broncos +1.5. What changed overnight for a 4-point swing there? What do we have something that did Russell Wilson retire overnight? No, I don't think so. So why is there a 4-point swing in that line? Why? Because Nathaniel Hackett screwed up some timeouts the other day. Just a total overreaction line. I think the Broncos are still going to be a good team. There's just too much talent on this team.
Mm-hmm.
The injury report is a little concerning. It's another team that I'm going to need to see later in the week. Is Jerry Jeudy answer the bells? Patrick Surtain okay? But as long as they get some of these guys back, I'm going to back the Broncos here as a home dog. They're always good at home in September, especially. It's hard to play here in altitude. I still think they're the quality team that we thought they would be. I think this line change is absolutely unjustified. I think the Broncos are going to be just fine this season. Their backs are against the wall a little bit. It's like the Cowboys last week, right? You hear all week about how terrible you are. Oh my goodness, Cowboy season's over. The sky's falling. They're going to never win a game again. They come out and have a great performance and beat the Bengals. I think the same exact thing happens with the Broncos on Sunday night in prime time. I think Russell plays just fine. I think Nathaniel Hackett probably doesn't burn through all of his timeouts in the first 5 minutes of the half. I think the Broncos get the win, and the line move it doesn't make any sense to me.
Zeno's not okay. He's covered his face.
The line move is sharp money coming in on the Niners while they were, catching points there. So but
and there could be some buyback or something.
You want to set your money on fire and bet on Nathaniel Hackett, knock yourself out. I'm officially off. Not getting back on it anytime soon. So when I do, I'll shoot you a text, Frank, and let you know that, listen, I'm finally back on Nathaniel Hackett train going to nowhere. All right, NFC East fun this week. Giants, Cowboys, but also Commanders and Eagles. This is an interesting spot. This is what I take away from the Commanders in the first 2 weeks. They are an underrated offense. They are an offense that has a lot of players on the field and a lot of different targets and weapons to get the ball to. Carson Wentz has to continue to limit mistakes, and that O-line has to figure out a way to give him time, which they didn't do against the Lions on Sunday. But if they do, I believe this is an offense that can score with anybody in this league. Now, you get a good defensive performance in week 1 from the Commanders and not so good performance in week 2. Will the real Commanders defense please stand up? How does this one go for you, Frank?
Yeah, and it's another overreaction. Again, yesterday I'm looking at lines and I'm like, I really should take the Eagles -4. Wake up this morning and I should have taken the Eagles -4 because now they're -6.5. The Eagles, I love the Eagles. They're my Super Bowl pick. At least to lose to the Bills. I think the Eagles are great, but they're at a travel disadvantage this week. It's a divisional game. You're feeling really, really good about yourself. You're listening to Philly talk about how awesome you are. You're the best team in the NFC. And then you're going again, like you said, to this Commanders team that can score. The back door is always going to be open with them at +6.5. Even if the Commanders don't compete in this game, they can score late like they did against the Lions last week. Curtis Samuel's still healthy. As long as that's happening, they do have a lot of weapons on that team. Between McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson's okay. I think Commanders +6.5. It's a pretty easy home dog to get behind because, again, the back door is going to be open even if they don't compete in this game. The Eagles are going to spend all week hearing about how great they are. We don't know Darius Slay, what his health situation is like. I love the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I think they are going to the Super Bowl. I said that before the season, and there's no reason for me to change now. But 6.5 on the road when you're coming off a Monday night game and a divisional game, that's a pretty easy take for me. I think the Commanders cover the spread at least. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but it's so easy to punch that ticket on a home dog right there.
Yeah, that was my final question before we let you go. Is who's your favorite now coming out of the NFC? Who's your favorite right now coming out of the AFC after 2 weeks?
I mean, it's got to be the Bills. Oh my goodness, are they good?
They're
Like
so
it's
good.
you are looking at that team saying this is the best defense and the best offense in the NFL. Like who's
Yeah.
going to beat them? I mean, they look, the Titans aren't what they were last year, but 41-7 after 3 quarters. If the Bills had some grudge against Mike Vrabel, they could have won that game by 60. It was unbelievable. They are the favorite to win this all. And I can't look, if I'm going to pick the Eagles before the season, I can't get off of it now. Although I will say the Bucks defense has really been underrated. Nobody's talking about that because everybody's talking about Brady and all that, all the injuries there. The Bucks defense absolutely hammered the Cowboys when Dak Prescott was in the lineup. They come back, they hold Jameis Winston and that offense to 3 points basically until garbage time. They've allowed nothing this year. And once the Bucks get back, Godwin, Evans, they're going to have Julio out there, Russell Gage, Leonard Fournette. The line is healthier. That's a team that really looks like it's a complete team again. We'll see how Brady ages this season. I'm going to go with the Eagles, but I got to give a hat tip to the Bucks because nobody's talking about how good their defense has been.
The only thing that takes out Brady is his wife, Giselle. That's the only thing that could derail Brady this year.
My God!
Hey, look, you got it. I mean, we joke about that a little bit, but it's got. I mean, it's hard to focus. It's hard. Look, he's got a lot of, as he said, but in the preseason, he's got a lot of stuff going on, right? Like
a lot of stuff.
It's hard to focus on football with all this.
Mickey Goldmill and Rocky too. Women weaken legs.
Okay, Zeno. I will say, Frank, I support you loving the Bucks defense because I have them as my fantasy defense and my fantasy league, and they put up 25 points for me this week.
Ooh,
so I felt really good about that. They pushed me over the top, got me the dub.
Nice.
Frank, we so appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll be talking to you throughout the NFL season.
Talk to you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys.
All righty. Have a good one. Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports, NFL, and betting writer. We'll be talking to him throughout the season. Zeno, before we get into our play of the days in the Pickswise.com 3-star play of the day, let's talk about Superbook Sports for a second because Let's Bet It is presented by Superbook Sports, the best place to bet football this season. Download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com right now, and they're going to match your first bet up to $1,000, whether it wins or whether it loses. Plus, they already have lines up for every NFL game the rest of the season. So if you want to overreact after 2 weeks and bet Week 18, you are so welcome to do that. The #1 voted sportsbook in Vegas, now available in the palm of your hands. Visit superbook.com to sign up. You love it. Let's Bet It, presented by Superbook Sports. All right, Zeno. Pickswise.com, 3-star play of the day. Who do we got?
Well, obviously, it's all baseball loaded, right? No football, no college football, no NBA. So you got a couple of games out there, a couple of predictions there. You got the Red Sox and Reds tonight, Tigers and Orioles, Nationals and Braves. Make sure you check out all the picks on the Pickswise.com website.
Speaking of Tigers taking on the Orioles, that's actually my play of the day. I'm taking the Nerfy in that game, -122. Time is running out for the O's at this point. And time has already been gone for the Tigers because they absolutely suck. This is not going to be a fun game to watch by any means, but I love winning money, and I feel like I'm going to win some hitting the Nerfy here at -122. Neither team score, even against bad pitching, and this is actually like somewhat decent pitching in this game. In terms of first inning scoring, Tigers are on the bottom of the league, scoring in only 21% of the first innings on the road. The Orioles averaging about 31% scoring in the first inning at home. But Joey Wentz, 1.04 whip, 3 straight Nerfies in his last 3 starts. He's only had 2 starts in September since May. And in both of those starts, he's had 5 strikeouts per game. I feel pretty good with him on the mound. Then you look at a guy like Austin Voth. I like him on the Nerfy. He's going up against Detroit, 1.14 whip on the season, 2 straight Nerfies in his last 2 starts. I don't trust either of these offenses going up against bad pitching. These pitchers are pretty decent. They're not great by any means, but they're not really bad. So give me the Nerfy, and I'm only laying 22 cents for it. Why not? Tigers, Orioles, baby. Let's lock it in. I also know that you have a Nerfy at plus money, or I guess even money heading into tonight.
I have been itching to bet a Nerfy, and I finally found here on this Tuesday. Twins, Royals, even money, +100 Nerfy. The Minnesota Twins are 6th in Major League Baseball in first inning run scored percentage. But what odds makers don't know is that Zach Greinke is starting 4. the Kansas City Royals. Zach Greinke at home this year, 1.93 ERA, a 250 batting average against. Given up just 13 earned runs this year in 11 starts. Only allowed 1 home run this year at home. And he has not given up a single run in the first inning at home this year, the entire season. That's right. Undefeated to the Nerfy Zach Greinke at home. Dylan Bundy starts for the Minnesota Twins, 11-2 in his last 13 starts to the Nerfy since July 1st, including 6-1 on the road. Zach Greinke at home, third time in a row. I've tailed Zach Greinke at home at a Nerfy, cashed the previous 2 times. We're going for 3 in a row. Give me the Royals Twins Nerfy at even money today.
Cash it, baby. You'll love to see it. 2 Nerfies and 2 Yerfies between you and I. Love it. All right, that's it for us today, guys. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Mark Zeno, Lauren DeBarra. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Best of luck tonight. Let's get it. Let's get it.